Thank you. You may be seated. I think they're going to be closing the doors here in a minute, so for those emergency responders and firefighters, please acknowledge we have 2 doors that you can use for exit if you need to for a few moments. Welcome to our awards ceremony. We're glad you're here, and welcome to the Newlife Events and Training Center. This is the first time we've been here, so it's a trial run in some regards, but so far we're pretty excited about being here. Tonight is a celebration. It's not a memorial or a community presentation. It's actually a celebration. It's where we acknowledge the great work and exceptional acts of bravery and commitment exhibited by many people. I'm pleased to see so many friends and family members in attendance today and filling the place as we witness the great things our personnel accomplish on a regular basis. You may or may not know, but President Teddy Roosevelt was once a New York police commissioner and is known for making several rather colorful speeches. I think his experience as being a police commissioner has helped him understand the challenges faced by police officers then and even police officers today. He's often quoted as saying, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." That's not the speech I'm going to talk about today. I was thinking more about the time when he said, "It's not the critic who counts. The credit belongs to the man or woman who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, because there's no effort without error or shortcoming." Corrections officers, deputies, detectives, and support services personnel are in the arena every day fighting the good fight. They do outstanding work, and sometimes they make mistakes and they have errors or shortcomings. After all, we are people first, cops second. We may not be perfect, but we strive to do perfect work. Law enforcement continues to be the fallback position these days for anything and everything when it comes to dealing with people in crisis. Over the course of several years, we've been expected to change our focus from being crime fighters to focus on being community problem solvers. That isn't necessarily a bad thing, but the expectations and demands placed upon law enforcement to solve homelessness, respond to people in crisis, deal with addictions, mental illness, and substance abuse has collectively become unmanageable. I've often described our profession as being last responders, not first responders. And what I mean by that is families, friends, churches, counselors, and other social services have tried their best to fix these issues, but when things just don't go right or get out of hand, they call law enforcement. We're called to fix the things in a very short period of time. We are the last people who are called to fix the crisis, a crisis others unable to fix. We are a significant part of that problem, but any realistic solution requires much more community involvement. It takes social services and individual citizens to do their part in resolving these issues. I personally believe that public safety is a community responsibility. We need more of our community to step up and address the problems with us and help us face these challenges. We cannot do it on our own. And law enforcement is also under attack across our nation. More and more officers are being assaulted and killed just because of their profession. As of today, 60 officers have been killed in the line of duty. In 2017, 34% of the line of duty deaths resulted of gunfire. This year, over half of the officer deaths were attributed to gunfire. Things are changing. I don't share these statistics to alarm anyone, but to point out how law enforcement in the United States is changing and has been changing over the recent years. As our country becomes more and more polarized, the issues that we're faced with are more and more difficult to be confronted and to deal with. It's a tough job. Detectives and deputies are dealing with complex and time-consuming investigations. Corrections officers face the jail's overcrowding on a daily basis, and our 7 crisis cells are occupied every day. Even the support services personnel are challenged at our front counters. But fortunately, we have men and women who are willing to step up and meet the challenge. They are willing to do the work many are not even willing to consider. We'll add several cadets to our volunteer programs. We will be acknowledging employment service awards, honor retirees who have faithfully and diligently served our community and agency. We will recognize citizens who have helped us and served our communities in ways that we can't. And we'll hear about some very heroic and courageous accomplishments by our corrections officers deputies, and citizens. When we talk about awards or acknowledging people for the work that they've done, oftentimes I hear anyone could have done it, I'm just doing my job. But I find many of the acts we acknowledge tonight as actually being heroic. One definition of a hero is a mythological or legendary figure of divine descent endowed with great strength and ability. There's probably a few of us that think that that's us. But our heroes might not be legendary, but they truly are people we admire for their achievements and noble qualities. These are people who have shown great courage in adversity. Sometimes this is demonstrated in a single act. Sometimes it is demonstrated by day-to-day willingness and fortitude of being in the arena whose face is marred with dust, sweat, and blood. We are fortunate to have so many dedicated and committed people working at the Sheriff's Office. People are willing to do the hard work we are faced with every day, and I'm extremely excited and very grateful for that. But before we hear about them, I wanted to introduce my newest friend and fellow sheriff, Sheriff Chloe. I know Chloe's here somewhere in the crowd, so Chloe, if you could come up and join me at this time, I'd appreciate it. Come on up here, honey. So Chloe's going to stand here with me while we watch a video. You want to see a video of you and me? Okay, let's go ahead. Hi, how are you? Good to see you.
Where the streets are empty, that's where we run. Everyday people do everyday things, but I can't be one of them. I know you hear me now, we are a different kind. We can do anything. We could be heroes. Ooh. We could be heroes. Me and you, we could.
I'll stand right here with. I'm going to stand right here with me. The Sheriff's Office first met Chloe when she participated in Shop with a Cop program about 2 years ago, and then she joined us again last year when we asked her to be sheriff for the day. The Criminal Justice Training Center is the host of the August 16th Chief or Sheriff for a Day celebration. The day, as they describe it, is all about celebrating the lives of children who have been diagnosed with a life-threatening or chronic medical condition. The hope is to provide these children and their families with a day of fun they will never forget and to become a part of their precious lives. I've really gotten attached to Chloe. I think she's one of my best friends. Chloe has already been in the Armed Forces Day and Viking Fest parades, and she's soon going to be introduced to the commissioners again at a commissioners meeting, and then will also be participating in other parades before the August 16th event. Make sure you get one of her baseball cards on the way out if you don't have one, and if you want to learn more information about the Chief for a Day or Sheriff for a Day program, you can certainly go to the Criminal Justice website and get that information. So thank you for welcoming Chloe to our family. And now we're going to go have you sit with Mom.
Okay, before we get going with all of our awards and recognition, I want to apologize ahead of time. one of the great things about working at the sheriff's office is there's always so much great stuff going on, so many good people doing great things. Unfortunately, the byproduct of that is when we have awards ceremony, they tend to be jam-packed and sometimes quite long. So in respect for your time, we're going to try and go fairly fast through this. And for those who are going to be coming up here, a couple of requests. As we get close to calling your name, if you could start staging here in the area, and then those receiving awards or recognition are going to come up on the stage. If we could make it come up here and then exit there, it'll keep things moving along pretty fast. If there's somebody who can't come up the stairs, let us know. We'll come to you. But we don't want to cut short the narration and the great stories, but we're going to try and keep them relatively brief. And I would encourage any of you to ask any questions afterwards of any of us to tell you more about some of the great things that's been going on. So first off, our first order of business tonight is oath of offices for our cadet corps. And we have 4 cadets who I'm going to call up to the stage right now. Cadet Trevor Lewis, Cadet Robert Pierce, Cadet Aiden Reed, Cadet Edwin Zapata.
Are you all ready? Raise your right hand, please. I state your name. Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the laws of the state of Washington. I will uphold all ordinances of Kitsap County and will faithfully discharge the duties as a Kitsap County cadet to the best of my ability. On my honor, I will uphold the mission and vision of the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office and the values of teamwork, integrity, and professionalism. I promise to never betray my badge, my integrity, my character, or the public trust. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. The next order of business is the Presidential Volunteer Service Awards for the cadets. At this time, I'd ask our cadet coordinator, Brandon Myers, to step forward and help us with this. And Brandon, you can tell us who the mystery 5th person was who was standing up here.
Thanks, sir. Well, that was Jeremy Hand. He just joined us just a couple days ago, and I just told him to get up here, so it works. The Presidential Service Awards, just to talk about this real quick, is a volunteer recognition program that's sponsored by the government that honors our volunteers throughout the nation. Part of the Presidential Service Award for our cadets is recognizing the number of hours that they donate. And one of the things I like to point out constantly about our cadets, they're between the ages of 16 and 21, and most of them are in school, most of them are working, but somehow find the time to come out and donate hundreds of hours to our citizens in Kitsap County. So it's kind of a big deal. They get a certificate. They also get a pin and a letter from the president, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to call them up and let you know what their level award was. So for the Bronze Awards, this is somebody that donates between 100 and 174 hours of volunteer community service. We have some cadets that are here tonight have already left the program, have turned 21. So if you see them without a uniform, it's most likely that. And some can't be here, so bear with me. But for the Bronze level awards, we have Amber Andrada, AC Beach, Nicholas Cutting, Reese LeBeau, Anthony Poggi, and Edwin Zapata. Come on up. Our Silver level recognizes volunteers that put in 175 to 249 hours within the program. The silver level goes to Colin Bailey and Kaylee Velez. And last but not least, our Gold level. And our Gold level is for 250 plus hours in a 12-month period. And I should also note that Alonzo Marquez, who's coming up on stage right now, is also an active duty member of our United States Armed Forces. And on top of that, still managed to put in over 250 hours to the cadet program. So I think that's pretty cool. Round of applause for all our cadets, please. And for the sake of time, I'll hand these to you guys over there. So let's go. Thank you.
Good, Brandon. Thank you. We're moving on to the Length of Service Awards. These are awards given to our members that recognize the many years of loyal service, experience, and commitment. As we call you by group, please come forward. First, with the 20-year service award, Detective Eric Adams, Deputy Sheriff Chris Andrews, Support Services Specialist Karen Bresler, Detective Eric Jansen, Detective Tim Keeler, Deputy Sheriff John Loftus, Sergeant Curtis Launt, Administrative Support Specialist Maren Stribble, and Corrections Sergeant Ken Watkins. You could all join me up here. And then of another note, due to a previous commitment, Detective Jansen is out of state, but accepting on his behalf are his mother and father, Denny and Bev Jansen. If you guys. Hey, I just say it. I don't. Okay. Hang on. We'll find it. Okay. Instead of Bev and and Denny, we have Elsa and Lena. Thank you. Sheriff, I think my job's in danger. You're probably going to want Chloe to do this next time. For the 25-year service award, Detective Lori Blankenship and Corrections Officer Laura Giese, please step forward. No. Oh, geez. Holy cow. After 25 years, you think they could follow the rules. For 30 years service award, Corrections Officer Frank Haney, Corrections Officer John Peterson, and Lieutenant John Sprague. Great. For the next segment, I'd like to turn over the podium to our Patrol Chief, Steve Duckworth, to recognize the selection of the Patrol Chief's top 10 deputies for 2017.
Thank you, Undersheriff. And as the Undersheriff mentioned, I have the pleasure for the third time now of recognizing the Patrol Chief's top 10 award recipients for 2017. For those not familiar with this award, the Chief's Top 10 Award was created in 2008 by then Patrol Chief Gary Simpson as a way of recognizing those patrol deputies who exhibited an excellent work ethic throughout the year. From 2008 to 2015, the criteria for this award was statistically based. The patrol chief collected data through our report management system to determine quantity of work in a 12-month period. When I was appointed to this position in 2015, I wanted to rebrand the Chief's Top 10 to recognize quality of work in addition to quantity of work. Sergeant Dan Toomey was asked to assist me in developing new criteria for the award, and he recruited other members of patrol to assist in the process. Some of the areas we considered when making the selections were the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office mission, vision, and values, the published patrol expectations, measurable and objective patrol statistics, and input from all the patrol sergeants. Based on the final scoring, the following deputies are being recognized as the 2017 Patrol Chief's Top 10, and I'd like to ask each of them to come forward. Deputy Brandon Myers, Deputy Dave Green, Deputy Rob Korn, Deputy Lee Watson, Deputy John Stacy, Deputy Victor Olvera, Deputy Brock Goring, Deputy Stephen Russell, Deputy Scott Eberhard, and Deputy Drew Linder.
While the chief is handing those out, I do want to say that the idea actually came from Deputy Number 2, Lee Watson, years ago, when he said, you know, it would be nice if we had some way of recognizing people that have just continue to diligently do their job day in and day out. Not some big award for some great thing they've done, but just being a consistent hard worker. I really like the idea, and that's when we started. I think we're probably in about our 10th year of giving out these awards, and I think Lee's been on every one of them. Congratulations, guys.
For our next level awards, the category is Sheriff Level Awards. These awards recognize sheriff personnel or citizens who went above and beyond and displayed extraordinary initiative and commitment to enhance our agency mission, protect our community, make life-saving efforts, or put themselves at great risk during the performance of their duties. Our first awards will be presented to several citizens being recognized tonight. The first is for Mr. William Kimler. Are you here? You are. Tell you what, we'll come right down to you. How about that? Mr. Kimler is being recognized for his efforts last summer in saving the life of a motorist involved in a traffic collision. William was driving on Columbia Street in North Kitsap on August 20th when he witnessed a 79-year-old Suquamish woman crash her vehicle off the roadway and up an embankment. The force of the crash caused the woman's left arm to be pulled through the driver's door window. It became pinned between the ground and the car, bleeding severely. Using a cargo strap, Mr. Kimler applied an improvised tourniquet to the driver's arm to stop the bleeding. Emergency crews from North Kitsap Fire and Rescue extricated the driver, and she was later airlifted to Harborview Medical Center. Unfortunately, the severity of the injury resulted in the loss of her arm. Yet, because of the emergency care provided by Mr. Kimler, the woman's loss of blood was minimized and she survived. For his initiative and actions, we recognize Mr. Kimler's actions that night. Thank you. Our next award is the Sheriff's Specialty Plaque, and that's for Mr. Ted Rosenbaum. A practicing psychologist now retired, Ted has been providing psychological and critical incident advice for the Kitsap County Sheriff for over 20 years. He has assisted many other law enforcement and fire agencies as well over a very long period of time. He plays a key role in providing support to our staff in a time of need and advising the agency. When a critical incident occurs to any of the sheriff's personnel, corrections officers, patrol deputies, or detectives, often Dr. Rosenbaum is the second person notified by the incident command. A bit later, we'll recognize many law enforcement professionals in their roles in a critical incident that happened on Eagle Harbor on Bainbridge Island. Dr. Rosenbaum responded to that incident almost from the outset and he remained there for the duration and well beyond. Part of Dr. Rosenbaum's professional expertise is leading the post-critical incident stress management process, dealing with police officers and firefighters after violent or intense interactions. As news media has reported, these types of instances are becoming more frequent across the country, and Kitsap County has had its share. According to Dr. Rosenbaum, part of his job is to assist those involved with an experience that is abnormal. Being sad, angry, and confused often is part of the post-incident reaction. Ted is there to guide those affected through that progression, and he's with them for as long as needed. For all this and much, much more, Sheriff Gary Simpson takes great personal pride in presenting the Sheriff's Specialty Plaque to Dr. Ted Rosenbaum in appreciation of the hundreds of hours served covering a multitude of incidents when he was there to help us through a traumatic aftermath. Sheriff. Another Sheriff's Specialty Plaque to Bruce and Beth Cheshire. This plaque is being awarded for their devoted and professional volunteer services to the Kitsap County Sheriff's Search and Rescue Cadre. Sheriff Gary Simpson is honored to present the husband and wife team of Bruce and Beth and their canine assistants, who aren't here tonight, with the Sheriff's Specialty Plaque. Last spring, Bruce and Beth retired after more than 35 years of responding to searches in our jurisdiction. They were members of the German Shepherd Search Dogs of Washington. Although the organization is based in Pierce County, the Cheshires live in King County, and throughout their volunteer careers, they traveled over the Tacoma Narrows Bridge more than 75% of the time for our Kitsap County Sheriff's Office SAR missions. Bruce and Beth, their extensive record of volunteerism to the SAR community is extraordinary. You have assisted our office in so many years, in so many ways, that you're almost like full-time employees. Because not only did your canines seek missing persons, but you also helped sheriff's detectives with searches for crime scenes for evidence. So thank you to both of you and for your many generations of German Shepherd dogs for the volunteering of your time, effort, and expertise and expense. Sure. Our next category of awards are life-saving awards. Each award ceremony, we recognize the achievement of our corrections officers and sheriff's deputies who find themselves rendering emergency first aid or taking specific actions to save the life of someone in peril, at risk, or in medical distress. There have been water rescues, grasping suicide persons off bridge railings, entering burning houses or cars, along with emergency first aid for a medical crisis or injuries. Many times, the level of individual life-saving effort rises above the criteria for this award, generally because of the degree of danger facing the deputy or officer for their own personal safety. This may raise the award to the level of Medal of Courage or even the Medal of Valor. This evening, we wish to recognize 12 sheriff's personnel who, through their training, rendered appropriate life-saving measures that resulted in the saving or prolonging of life. And you're going to notice a pattern here. The treatment of those who have sustained traumatic injury, and the rescue of those undergoing emotional and mental health crisis, followed by the application of emergency first aid. We train for it. It's what is expected of us law enforcement professionals as first responders, and because more and more frequently we will arrive prior to medical aid arriving, or we're dealing with a critical incident scene that's not secure for fire or EMS crews to enter. We'll present the awards in two categories, patrol first, followed by corrections. And I'd like to call now Deputy Sheriff Joe Ring to the stage. While Joe is making his way here, I'll tell you the story. During the evening hours of Monday, January 16th, 2017, Deputy Joe Ring was en route home shortly after completion of his shift. Within a few minutes remaining, Joe swung his patrol vehicle into the South Kitsap Regional Park for a quick patrol check of the 200-plus acres located at Jackson and Lund. As Deputy Ring came upon an SUV parked to the north of the baseball batting cage, he observed a large hose attached to the vehicle's muffler and the other end inserted through the driver's side rear passenger door window. The window was rolled up and the interior of the SUV was fogged up. The engine of the SUV was running. The 38-year-old male driver and only occupant was still conscious. Seeing the patrol vehicle, the man reversed and started to leave. Deputy Ring stopped the vehicle and probably stopped a suicide. Noting a bottle of alcohol inside the vehicle, coupled with a man's confirmation that he was waiting to die, the driver was taken into protective custody and transported to a hospital. This proactive patrol action while heading for home at the end of watch likely saved the life of a person experiencing mental health and emotional health crisis. For his actions, Deputy Joe Ring is being honored with a life-saving award. For our next group, could I have Deputy Sheriff Steve Clarkson, Deputy Sheriff Brandon Myers, and Deputy Sheriff Heather Wright approach the stage? For them, the early morning hours of Sunday, March 5th, 2017, found KCSO North County deputies dispatched to a burglary in progress of the house on State Highway 305 near Clearwater Casino. While en route, the call was upgraded that gunshots had been fired by a female resident and a male suspect was wounded and down. Deputies Clarkson, Myers, and Wright arrived to find an unresponsive 28-year-old man on the front porch having sustained 2 gunshot wounds. Deputies assessed the man's injuries and rendered emergency first aid to the man's arm to reduce heavy bleeding by applying a tourniquet and direct pressure. Continuing their assessment, deputies found a bullet entry wound in the man's chest and an exit wound in his back. The deputies used equipment contained in their individual first aid trauma kits to treat both wounds with a blood clotting formula compound and pack the wounds with gauze bandages and maintain direct pressure until aid could arrive. The wounded suspect was turned over to the care of North Kitsap Fire and Rescue medics and transported to Tacoma Hospital in critical condition. If not for their immediate and appropriate actions rendered by the Sheriff's Patrol deputies to control the bleeding, the suspect would not have survived. For their quick and decisive action in the field, Deputy Clarkson, Myers, and Wright are being presented the Life-Saving Award. For the next Life-Saving Award, Deputy Sheriff Jason Hedstrom, could you please step forward? Around dawn on Friday, July 7th, a CPR call was dispatched to the intersection of State Route 308 and Silverdale Way in Poulsbo. The victim was a 31-year-old female inside a vehicle. Deputy Hedstrom was in the immediate vicinity and responded. Jason located the vehicle in a convenience store parking lot. He grabbed first aid supplies from his patrol vehicle and learned from a witness that the female was discharged recently from a rehabilitation center for heroin addiction. Deputy Hedstrom also recognized multiple symptoms the woman presented as an overdose of opiates. Jason administered one dose of Narcan nasal spray and initiated CPR chest compressions. Deputy Hedstrom noted the presence of a loaded syringe of black tar heroin in the center console of the car. Poulsbo Fire Department's medics arrived and continued emergency care. The female patient began breathing on her own and regained consciousness. She was transported to area hospital for further treatment. This successful administration of Narcan was the first for the Sheriff's Office since we underwent training in the use of the Narcan and issuance of Narcan nasal sprays during in-service training only 4 months earlier. The patient is alive because of the quick and decisive actions of Deputy Jason Hedstrom. For his actions that day, he's being awarded the Life-Saving Award. Could I have Sheriff's Deputy Austin Hewitt and Deputy Sheriff Chris Mano please approach while they're making the long walk down here. So a vehicle and a motorcycle collision on State Highway 16 during the late morning of November 20th brought multiple agencies and personnel to the scene. Among those were Deputy Hewitt and Deputy Mano, who arrived prior to emergency crews from South Kitsap Fire and Rescue and Pierce County Fire Department. The motorcyclist had been run over by 3 vehicles and was critically injured. I'd like to read a portion of an incident report as written by Fire Captain Chuck Hislop from South Kitsap Fire and Rescue. I'd like to give recognition for a few who stood out of the crowd at this crash scene. When we arrived, the patient was laying on his back being tended by several persons. I noticed that the patient had tourniquets applied to both upper femoral areas. His legs below the knees were mutilated. I later found out that this level of trauma care was provided by the 2 Kitsap County Sheriff's deputies. I feel strongly that if those deputies had not applied tourniquets from their personal trauma kits, the patient would have died right there. With a little research, I was able to find the names of Deputies Hewitt and Mano. For their actions that day, Sheriff Gary Simpson is proud to present the Life-Saving Awards to Deputy Austin Hewitt and Deputy Chris Mano. Moving along to our Corrections Division is Corrections Officer Greg Chavez and Corrections Sergeant Richard Fitzwater present. Officer Chavez was conducting a walkthrough of the South A inmate housing unit around 10:30 a.m. Thursday, August 17th. Stopping a cell A1 door, Officer Chavez observed the top of the female's inmate's head leaning against the door as she was hanging from her mattress cover. The cover is held by being placed through a small space between the top of the door frame and the door frame. Calling for backup, Greg entered the cell, which caused the patient to drop to the floor. After the mattress cover was removed, Sergeant Fitzwater performed an assessment, realizing the inmate was unresponsive and no pulse or respirations. CPR was initiated and the AED was brought to the housing unit. Chest compressions were continued until emergency medical crews arrived. The inmate ultimately was revived, and she was transported to a local hospital for continuing care. For their actions that day, Officer Chavez and Sergeant Fitzwater are being awarded the Sheriff's Life-Saving Award. Corrections Officer Justin Norenberg, if you're present, please come forward. During a welfare check on South Pod cell block on Monday, December 18th, Officer Justin Norenberg peered into the medical holding cell but couldn't see the inmate through the cell door window. Looking through a side window, he observed a male inmate seated underneath the ADA grab bar with a mesh laundry bag tied around the railing and his neck. The inmate's face was deep purple in color, and there were no other indications the man's life was in dire peril. After calling for medical response, Officer Norenberg entered the cell and used his rescue knife to cut and release the mesh bag away from the railing and the inmate's head. After repositioning the patient, Justin used a sternum rub to elicit a response from the man. There was none. Assessment for CPR was being conducted when the man began to breathe on his own. Medical aid arrived, provided care, and transported the inmate to a local hospital. For his quick actions that day, Sheriff Garrett Simpson is pleased to present the Sheriff's Life-Saving Award to Officer Justin Nornberg. Corrections Officer Jacob Sisney and Corrections Officer Jacinda Vallejo. If you're here, please step forward. On March 11th, 2018, the quick actions of Officer Jacob Sisney and Jacinda Vallejo saved the life of a jail inmate. When alerted that the patient was hanging in a cell in the Central A housing unit, they entered and cut down the male who was trying to commit suicide by using his mattress cover attached to air vents. The man was purple in color and not breathing. Once the mattress cover was removed, he began to breathe on his own, and he was lowered to the floor. Once he regained consciousness, the inmate became assaultive towards the officers. With backup assistance, the inmate was ultimately brought under control. For the quick action that day and the ability to adapt from life-saving efforts to fighting the same person, Sheriff Gary Simpson is pleased to provide the life-saving award to Officer Jacob Sisney and Officer Jacinda Vallejo. Our next award is a Professional Excellence Award, and this is for Sergeant Scott Dixon. If you're here, could you please come forward? Sergeant Dixon is our coordinator for access to a military surplus program that allows law enforcement agencies access to military surplus. More than 7,000 law enforcement agencies are currently enrolled in the program. Through his tenacity, attention to detail, and always checking that website, Sergeant Dixon has acquired more than $1 million of surplus military equipment through this program. It's competitive, and generally surplus items are obtainable on a first-come, first-served basis, with good items going quickly. Sergeant Dixon continuously searches online accounts for available equipment. Some of the items that he's been able to obtain for our department include an armored troop transport vehicle known as an MRAP, now used by our SWAT team as a tactical vehicle. He also acquired a Humvee, also used by the SWAT team. He's acquired thermal imaging rifle scopes, camera-equipped robots, lighting equipment for vehicles, mounted and portable lights for SWAT team and detective crime scene vehicles, 83 brand new portable radios, and equipment for K-9 obstacle course. For his initiative, determination, and taking on this project that has benefited the agency with equipment they could not obtain on its own, Sheriff Garrett Simpson is very pleased to recognize Sergeant Scott Dixon with the Award of Professional Excellence. Our next award is also for a Professional Excellence Award to Detective Mike Grant. If you could come forward. Last summer, Detective Mike Grant was hiking on Mount Adams in Yakima County when he encountered a distressed woman whose 16-year-old son had become lost. The teen had medical health issues that require him to wear leg braces. Understanding the situation as a search and rescue coordinator himself, Mike took on the 10-hour assist effort to help the mother and help coordinate with the Yakima County Sheriff's Office SAR team. The valuable information that Mike was able to provide searching military units greatly assisted in locating the missing juvenile high on the mountain. When found, the body temperature of the youth was only 93 degrees. The medics who treated him on scene doubted that he would have survived the night had he not been found. Mike escorted the woman off the mountain, and according to Detective Sergeant Chad Birkenfeld, who writes, "This commendation letter from Yakima Sheriff Brian Winters exemplifies Mike's character, compassion, professional acts, and enthusiasms. Even more to the point is Mike's dedication. Mike is a latent print examiner and will often break cases open. He has assisted in identification of evidence in homicide, burglary, illegal firearms, possession, and fraud cases that assist in convictions or plea agreements. In 2017 alone, Mike authored 50 warrants and subpoenas in a variety of cases. This award really does showcase our core values of teamwork, integrity, and professionalism. For all that, Sheriff Gary Simpson is very proud to present the Sheriff's Award of Professional Excellence to Detective Michael Grant." Our next category of awards are for the Employee of the Year. On February 26, Sheriff Simpson made public announcement of the selection of the 2017 Kitsap County Sheriff's Office Employees of the Year. Our communities are truly fortunate to have such dedicated members of the Sheriff's Office team within our ranks. Their many and varied contributions to the mission and success of the Sheriff's Office is reflected directly in their competitive nomination category as they are nominated and selected by their peers. Our employees of the year are as follows, and I'll call you up one at a time. The first is Joseph Adams, 2017 Support Services Specialist of the Year. While Joe is making his way down here, let me tell you a little bit about him. He's a 3-year veteran of the Investigations and Support Services Division. Joe hails originally from Tacoma and now resides in South Kitsap. He's a 2009 graduate of South Kitsap High School and earned an associate's degree in applied science and accounting from Olympic College. Joe's colleagues nominate him as a problem solver, professional, dependable co-worker who can multitask and excel in a challenging environment every day. Demonstrating excellent customer service skills, Joe has a natural ability to remain very calm. He interacts with customers in such a manner that they conclude their business and are usually pleased with the transaction. And lastly, Joe embodies the phrase team player. He will fill in and take over for coworkers with minimal notice or none. When asked to take on a task that isn't part of his specific duties, he does it without hesitation or complaint. Joe exemplifies our agency core values of teamwork, integrity, and professionalism. For all that and your core values and your work ethic, Sheriff Gary Simpson is privileged to recognize Joseph Adams as the 2017 Sheriff Support Specialist of the Year. Corrections Officer Jessica Day, if you could step forward. While Jessica's making her way down, Jessica is also a 3-year veteran of the Sheriff's Corrections Division, and she was born in Seattle. She lists Bremerton as her hometown, and she now resides in South Kitsap. She's a graduate of Bremerton High School and studied business management under the University of Phoenix program. Currently, Officer Day serves as the officer who oversees alternatives to incarceration. She is responsible for screening and monitoring persons serving their sentences under the electronic home monitoring program. Another key component of the alternatives program is scheduling qualified jail inmates for community service duty, specifically to duty outside the physical confines of the jail, which could include the road crew, which performs valuable service to the county by picking up trash over hundreds of miles of county roadways each year. Officer Day has previously performed duties as a housing unit officer and booking officer. Her colleagues have lauded Jessica as a solid team member, always exemplifying integrity, selfless service, and excellence in the quality of her work. She is highly respected as a member of the Corrections Division team, always willing to provide support in any capacity. She also volunteers every year with 2 very important community events that we're involved in. Our Tip-A-Cop event at a local restaurant to help raise funds for Special Olympics, and also Shop-A-Cop, which is a program that provides presents and gifts to underprivileged children. Jessica impeccably represents the Corrections Division at job fairs and Coffee with a Cop community get-togethers. She was an agency delegate to an occupational analysis study conducted by the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission to determine improvements to the course of instruction and training at the Corrections Officer Academy in Burien. For her professional demeanor with an acute sense of teamwork, dedication to duty, and her many aspects of volunteer service, Sheriff Gary Simpson is privileged to recognize Jessica Day as the Sheriff's 2017 Corrections Officer of the Year. Deputy Greg Rice, could you please come forward for us? Greg Rice is a 19-year veteran of the Sheriff's Office and the Patrol Division. A Kitsap County native, Greg lists Poulsbo as his hometown. He now resides in central Kitsap with his family, Detective Jennifer Rice, and their son. Greg is a North Kitsap High School graduate and went on to earn an Associate of Arts degree from Olympic College, followed by a Bachelor of Arts degree in Law and Justice from Central Washington University. Deputy Rice is known throughout the agency for his personal integrity, professional work ethic, and an ingrained sense of service to others, and acute dedication to officer safety and desire to help make all of us better and safer officers in the field. Greg initiated his law enforcement career in 1996 as a corrections officer and then a reserve deputy with Kittitas County Sheriff's Office, joining KCSO in 1998. One note, Deputy Rice was selected and then qualified as a tactical officer with the Sheriff's Regional SWAT team in 2002, followed by his qualification as a sniper in the same team in 2003. Within the unit, Greg currently holds leadership positions as SWAT team leader and sniper team leader. I'd also like to note that a high degree of tactical training embraced by our SWAT team will become evident a bit later. Greg is a very important link in that chain as a leader, planner, and tactical operator. Additionally, Greg is this agency's firearm range master, responsible for all aspects of range operations, courses of fire, training, and safety when used by Sheriff's Office deputies. He is currently certified firearms instructor or a Marine Services boat operator, and he holds qualifications as a defensive tactics instructor, taser instructor, and in addition, he also has a U.S. Coast Guard captain's license. Yeah, phew. A comment about Greg made in the nomination document. Greg has on so many occasions reached out to members of this office and other law enforcement agencies during critical incidents, after injuries, or during moments of personal crisis to assist in any manner possible. He quietly helps others on duty or off always. Deputy Rice is the recipient of the Sheriff's Medal of Courage stemming from a confrontation with a violent armed suspect in a burglary in South Kitsap Animal Clinic in 2013. For his dedication to duty in all aspects of tactical and patrol operations, his acute sense of officer safety and training, and above all, his willingness to set aside his personal schedule to assist others, Sheriff Gary Simpson is privileged to recognize Deputy Greg Rice as the Sheriff's 2017 Deputy Sheriff of the Year. Moving on to retirements. So a word on retirements. When a career marked by life of the beat closes, whether in uniform or plain clothes, mere celebration isn't enough. Law enforcement retirement is something special. Courage, compassion, ingenuity, integrity, persistence, and dedication all must combine for a person to make a job in law enforcement into a career in law enforcement. This part of our ceremony is set aside to formally acknowledge the many contributions and accomplishments of our own as they have stepped out of the uniform and into new phases of their life. First, like to call, is Sergeant Clinton Bergeron here? Anybody see him? No, let's pass over him for a minute. Deputy Mark Gundrum, is he here? Okay. They're all on vacation. Yeah. I would like to note, since we do have a retiree in the house, that we should note, and I forgot, former Chief of Corrections for Kitsap County Sheriff's Office, Larry Berthoff, is here in the house. But one current retiree that I know is here is Detective Kenneth Smith, if you could come forward for us. Okay, a little bit about Ken. Detective Ken Smith underwent a change of status last July 1st when he joined the long green line of Kitsap County deputy sheriffs who transitioned from active duty to retired status. For Ken, it was a perseverance of personified. For him, it was 43 and a half years total law enforcement service, with 42 of that as a sworn peace officer. That included service for 3 law enforcement agencies, 4 personnel or badge numbers. He handled 2 canines in his career. In addition, he was also a dispatcher, a jail officer, a patrol deputy, a canine handler, a DARE instructor, a field training officer, who was one of my field training officers, in fact, sorry, and hostage negotiator, firearms instructor. In addition, he did general assignment detective work with specialties in crime scene processing, fingerprint examination, video forensics, and is the detective responsible for the sex offender registration program. He's also was a valued member of the Honor Guard. Born in New Britain, Connecticut, Ken's family moved to Montana where he was raised. A graduate of Charles Russell High School in Great Falls, Montana, Ken continued his education attending the College of Great Falls. He was commissioned as a deputy sheriff with the Cascade County Sheriff's Office in Great Falls in June 1975, and he considered it a temporary job at the time. It morphed, of course, into a career of lasting 40 years. That's what happens. So Ken served with Cascade County as a patrol officer and a canine handler until 1979 when he moved to Washington State in duty as a deputy of the Benton County Sheriff's Office in Kennewick. Ken would spend 10 years in Central Washington helping to establish the Benton County Canines program. One final move brought him our way when Ken's nomadic legacy brought him to Kitsap County in July 1989. Working as a patrol deputy and subsequently as an investigator in detectives. Ken resided in Port Orchard for 25 years, and then he recently relocated to Allen in Mason County in 2014. For his decades of dedicated public services to the citizens of 3 law enforcement agency jurisdictions, including 28 years with the Sheriff's Office here, Sheriff Gary Simpson is very honored to publicly recognize the law enforcement career of Detective Ken Smith.
He says I have to say something. I'm very unaccustomed to public speaking, as probably some people do know, but not really. The only thing I'm going to say is I'll give you a quickie little short story of how I actually got started in law enforcement. I was a junior in high school, and when you filled out in homeroom a career card, and I put down law enforcement and law and military, because in Great Falls, Maelstrom Air Force Base was there, so I was interested in military as well. About a week later, I walked in the door, and my dad's sitting at the kitchen table with a letter from the sheriff's office, unopened. And he goes, "What did you do now?" So it was an invitation to go down to the sheriff's office and start a cadet program like we have here. So I was one of the original cadets in 1971 with the Cascade County Sheriff's Office. And then when I actually got hired in December of '73, I walked into the sheriff's office just goofing around one afternoon, and the sheriff goes, "What the heck are you doing here?" And I go, "Well, nothing." And he goes, "Well, why aren't you in school?" And I said, "Well, I didn't make enough this last summer after I graduated to go." Well, John Kershaw was this big bohemian kind of guy, and he doesn't, he tells you what you want to do. He doesn't ask you, he just tells you. So he says, "Get in my office." So I wander into his office with him, and he gets on the phone, and he hands me a card, and it's a name of somebody up at the College of Great Falls. He says, "Go see this guy, tell him you work here, and you're on the law enforcement education grant program." So I did that and came back and gave him my class assignments, and he says, "See Shirley out there working the desk?" And I go, "Yeah." "You're now assistant jailer dispatcher. Get out there and find out what your schedule is." No application, no nothing at that time. So that's how I got started. And then same thing when I turned 20 and walked into the office, he asked, "Do you want to be a deputy sheriff?" And I'm going, "Well, yeah, I thought about it. Go see Gene and get your badge." Yeah, it's quite a bit harder now, because when I actually when I tested for Benton County and I had to take a physical test and all that stuff, I'm going, "What the heck is this?" So, but yeah, so I've enjoyed myself. I don't miss being called out at 2 o'clock in the morning. I miss the camaraderie of everybody that I worked with. It was really a lot of fun, and I don't think you can work with a better group of people. Thank you.
So
That's
although
from a
they're
guy
not
who
here,
doesn't want to talk.
although they're not here, I'd like to just say a few words about our 2 retirees who didn't make it tonight. First off, Sergeant Clinton Bergeron. Clinton was hired on September 6, 1994 with our agency and graduated from the academy here in 1995. After he completed his field training, he worked as a patrol deputy, making a significant law enforcement career shift when he selected to assignment of detectives in 1999. He served as detective from 1999 until March 2003 when he was promoted to the grade of sergeant. While in the detectives, Clinton was a recipient of the Sheriff's Commendation for his role in East Bremerton burglary investigation involving the sexual assault of several juveniles. Through his dedicated work, the suspect was subsequently identified, arrested, and convicted. After returning to the patrol division, he served as a patrol sergeant for the next 14 years. Some of his facts about Clinton that maybe not everybody knew: he previously served as a New York City auxiliary police officer for about 18 months with New York Police Department's 20th Precinct. He has also served as a deputy sheriff with the New York City Sheriff's Department for about 1 year before packing up and heading to Kitsap County. Earlier in his career, he worked in the film industry as a CPA for Warner Brothers Studios. Sergeant Bergeron was one of our original members of the SWAT team, and he's a qualified SWAT operator. Clinton retired from the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office on September 1, 2017 after completing 23 years of commissioned service. So we just wanted to honor him tonight for all that work and for all the service he had to our agency. A little bit about Deputy Mark Gundrum. He was one of our favorite larger-than-life figures in the Patrol Division for 16 years, having affectionately been known simply as Gunny by most people. A lateral transfer officer from Carson City Sheriff's Office, Nevada, Gunny joined us on June 6, 2001. Prior to his move to Washington, Gunny served at the Carson City Sheriff's Office for more than 4 years in both a reserve and then a full-time capacity. His prior work experience included construction, framing, carpenting, and construction foreman. He attended Western Nevada Community College. Mark has held several collateral duty qualifications during his law enforcement career spanning 2 agencies. Those included defensive tactics instructor, SWAT team member, field training officer, and of a special note, Mark was the driving force behind the development and establishment of the Kitsap County Sheriff's Tactical Tracking Team. He was considered a natural leader amongst his peers, and he was a recipient of many commendation and appreciation letters throughout his career here. He is also especially noteworthy as a training officer. There's probably no single important element of law enforcement agency than instruction and development of student officers during the probationary period, and their success in attaining the requisite standards hold paramount in their future along with that of the agency. For all that, the Sheriff's Office was very deeply appreciative of Mark Gundrum's service with our agency for 20 years. So thank you. So our next and last set of awards has to do with a critical incident we kind of mentioned earlier that happened in Eagle Harbor on Bainbridge Island last summer. So we've arrived at this evening's award presentation where we recognize the many law enforcement personnel for their involvement during that incident. I'd assume that the basic details of that night are known to most everybody here this evening, but for the sake of others who don't, or viewers on BCAT, I wanted to provide a condensed version of the event. A tense and very dangerous situation developed during the evening of Saturday, July 8th, that continued into the morning hours of July 9th, 2017. Usually when you begin a story like that, they started out by saying it's a dark and stormy night. In this case, it wasn't a dark and stormy night. It was a beautiful summer evening in Bainbridge Island. In Eagle Harbor, there were people on their boats, there was people on the docks, there was people on the water in kayaks. There was people on their decks all around the surrounding area. Bainbridge Island police requested assistance in dealing with a 34-year-old man on a sailing yacht anchored in the harbor. The man was shooting randomly at the shoreline and other vessels moored in the harbor. By some estimates, he fired over 100 rounds. Patrol units, members of the Sheriff's Regional SWAT team, along with crisis negotiators, all responded. After several hours of containment, the SWAT team, Marine Services Unit, other local agencies, and King County Guardian 1 helicopter made contact and attempted to get the man to surrender, providing him with many opportunities and using a variety of communications and less lethal means. Ultimately, the man armed himself with a rifle after threatening lethal force by aiming the rifle at the Marine 1 officers engaged. The officers engaged the subject with lethal force. The yacht was boarded quickly and life-saving efforts were initiated. Ultimately, the man succumbed to his wounds. Very gratefully, though, no law enforcement personnel were injured. We're about to recognize more than 24 professionals from our office, from outside agencies in both Kitsap and King counties who had a direct effect on the outcome of this incident that Sunday morning last summer. First off, we'd like to call the following people forward for a commendation award. Those would be from Bainbridge Island Police Department, Police Chief Matt Hamner, Officer Jonathan Bingham, Officer Curtis Ingrid, Officer Dale Johnson, Officer Cameron Lewis, Officer Eric Peffer, Sergeant Ben Sias, Sergeant Trevor Zimba. From the Bremerton Police Department, Officer Dale Roselle. And from the Sheriff's Office, Chief Dave White, Deputy Rob Korn, Deputy Tony Graham, Deputy Craig Hansen, Deputy Aaron Logdahl, Deputy Mike Meason, Deputy Chad Miller, and Tactical Medic Cody Baker from South Kitsap Fire and Rescue. In addition, From King County Sheriff's Office, Guardian 1 Pilot Deputy Keith Potter and Guardian 1 Pilot Deputy Josh Sweeney. Wow. For their many roles associated with this situation, from the incident command, investigative support, to coordinating containment, tactical response, cover overwatch, logistical assistance, to direct actions response at the scene, including aerial and waterborne support, Sheriff Gary Simpson is proud to present the Sheriff's Commendation Award to these 19 law enforcement professionals for their meritorious and dedicated actions during that critical incident and the days following. Thank you, Sheriff. The check's not in the mail. We'll go ahead and get those plaques to you right away here after the ceremony. So thanks, guys. Excellent work. For the same incident, we have Medals of Valor for several officers. The award of Medal of Valor is reserved for Kitsap County Sheriff's personnel whose actions during the specific incident rise above and beyond that normally expected of law enforcement professionals. The Medal of Valor requires extraordinary action that involves the immediate risk to life in the prevention of harm to others, or extraordinary actions involving immediate risk to life in the apprehension of dangerous persons. This evening, we honor 8 law enforcement and medical professionals embarked during this incident aboard the Kitsap County Sheriff's safe boat called call sign Marine 1. I'd like to ask Medal of Valor recipients to please join Sheriff Simpson on the stage, and they include from the Sheriff's Office, Deputy Sheriff Chris Andrews, Deputy Sheriff Shane Hansen, Deputy Sheriff Andrew Wren, Detective Eric Jansen, Deputy Sheriff Greg Rice, from the Marine Services Unit, Deputy Sheriff Jason Hedstrom, Sheriff Sergeant Wilson Sapp, and from the Paulsville Fire Department, SWAT Team Medic Bruce Lowry. And since Detective Jansen is not here, he is going to have some family members come up. So the Medal of Valor is conferred on the named individuals for a service set forth as follows. For their actions in the face of an armed person aboard an anchored sailing yacht in the middle of Eagle Harbor, Bainbridge Island, firing multiple weapons randomly at residents along the shoreline, at people in the water, at other moored boats in the harbor, and at responding law enforcement units. When requested to assist, available members from the Sheriff's SWAT team responded in a pre-designated location, created a tactical plan, and embarked aboard the Sheriff's Marine Services unit boat, Marine 1. A second boat from Bainbridge Island Police Department, call sign Marine 8, also deployed with additional SWAT personnel on board. Following a tactical approach after nightfall without navigational lights, the 2 boats closed on the sailboat's moored position. Marine 1 was the contact vessel with Marine 8 providing cover. In a display of courage and bravery, using only one handheld ballistic shield for protection, Marine 1 contacted the suspect's vessel, coming right up alongside. SWAT members manually broke out a window and inserted CS gas into the cabin. Approximately 10 minutes later, the suspect emerged naked from the cabin. He did follow down commands and took specific steps to actually move out of the boat and into a life raft or a dinghy moored next to it. For some reason, the suspect returned to his boat, returned topside, grabbed a rifle from the cabin, re-exited, and pointed the rifle directly at Marine 1. While not desired, the outcome was a direct result of the man's actions towards personnel aboard Marine 1. That decisive action displayed by those aboard Marine 1 while advancing on an armed subject was conducted without hesitation in complete disregard for their own safety. Their actions stopped an active threat to public safety and the lives of civilians in the immediate vicinity. These are acts of professionalism in the face of grave danger. They reflect great credit upon themselves, the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office, and are in keeping with the highest traditions of the law enforcement profession. Sheriff Simpson. did pretty good. So moving, that does it for our awards tonight. Before I turn this over to Sheriff Simpson for closing remarks, I'd like to thank the Director of Newlife Events and Training Center here for the use of this facility and the assistance of its staff. I'd also like to acknowledge the members of the Award Recognition Committee for all their work and contribution in the production of this ceremony. It's considerable. And those people would be Corrections Lieutenant Penny Sapp, Property and Evidence Control Specialist Tina Puckett, Sergeant Dan Toomey, Deputy Scott Wilson, and Deputy Tim Young, our photographer, for his services tonight, and all those others who helped us tonight with the awards ceremony. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sheriff Simpson.
Thank you. All those were just mentioned, will you please stand up so we can recognize you for the work you just did. This was put together by them. Thank you. They have patiently put the program together after we postponed, and we're glad to be here today. Oath of Office awards, or Oath of Office ceremonies, service awards, certificates of appreciation, special recognition, numerous life-saving awards, Employees of the Year recognition, a few retirements, and heroic events and Medal of Valor awards. That's one heck of a night. I really don't know how to make it much better than what we've done, and we have a new sheriff in town too. Chloe, are you still here? There she take off. Tonight's been a great night. It's given us an opportunity to say thank you and acknowledge individual and team accomplishments. Kitsap County is a great place to live and to visit, but even a better place to work because of the teamwork, integrity, and professionalism of the people who work here at the Sheriff's Office. I am extremely grateful to be a part of the Sheriff's Office, and I'm grateful to work with so many absolutely amazing people. I hope you've enjoyed our ceremony tonight, and I wish you the best as you drive home, and please be safe. Thank you.